You noble diggers, all stand up now.
Welcome, comrade. Never forget the forms.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to my channel. Today we were going to be talking about John Locke and Thomas Hobbes. We also are dreaming today of maybe having more subscribers than videos posted. I know, dreaming too big. I wanted to talk about John Locke and Thomas Hobbes, even though they're outside of the course syllabus for my history of Western philosophy. And I'm sure if I had, students in front of me, they'd be like, one of you would be like, well, why didn't you talk about Thomas Hobbes and John Locke? Because they suck. They're not necessary to our conception of the history of Western philosophy. As I said at the outset, the history of Western philosophy is just one long-standing debate. If you think about any other study in throughout university disciplines, chemistry, physics, whatever, right? They are studying something. They have basically one question at heart. And if you ask all the philosophy disciplines, or if you asked all the philosophy departments, they would say gibberish. They would say a long-winded bullshit speech. They might tell you something like philosophy is the queen of the sciences. They might say that philosophy studies ontology, epistemology, and bullshit. It's a debate. It's one long debate about metagaming, how to metagame history. So, I hope you see, you probably don't, why we don't talk about Hobbes and Locke. Once you have the debate figured, the idealist versus materialist, does the universe run on thought or does the universe run on stuff? The logic of everything just follows, and government is well within that affair. And if you'll notice that, as I said many episodes ago on the history of philosophy, that the Neoplatonists won, and they have to believe that there are choices being made. They have to, because if they don't, their caste members will reject them and kick them out of the rich classes. So, when you think about the debate between Locke and Hobbes, which is a debate between like the British style of government and the American style of government, that there are no constitutional rights, but there are many privileges and this unwritten constitution that goes back, and you have to pay attention to tradition or the rule of law in America. And it's clear that the American system is lesser, much lesser. And it's because it abandons the battleground, because it doesn't believe that it's there. The battleground of ideology, the battleground of belief, the battleground of leadership. So Thomas Hobbes is always accused of being authoritarian or totalitarian, that there's no right to rebel under this government, that it does not require the consent of the governed. And I think that is an unfair reading of what Hobbes was about. That what is the right to rebel under the American government, which is a Lockean style of government with dispersed powers and a checked executive, and reason being the appeal constantly. You have the same right to rebel under the Hobbes system as you do under the Locke system. The technical right to rebellion will be met with the same force. Rebellion is rebellion. Your right to it is it's over there somewhere. Best of luck trying to take that right. And it's not about, exercising authoritarian power. Hobbes is not about exercising authoritarian power just because. It's about the latent power. It's about having the power and not using it, so that people can come together and work to have productive lives, to help increase the bounty of the Commonwealth, so that all may share in its in the food and the luxury and the ease. That those good feelings that exist under a sword of Damocles, a demon, a leviathan, he calls it, which is a biblical sea monster, and he describes it as uh, the person, the royal personage, is a fake god, is is almost deified by all the efforts and wills of the past generations that went into forging it, so that their will is law, but that the law should also be their will. And so authoritarian power tips over all the time, but because it's run by an idiot, usually. In that if there was uh, a council of people who were gardened for this purpose, that they would be probably better, definitely better than whatever we have under the American system right now. The American system leaves a power vacuum, and this power vacuum allows the war of all against all to go on unabated. You may believe you're all citizens and you're all working together for the good, but there are rich people, they want to sacrifice you, they want to use you, they want to exploit you for all the wealth that they can get out of you. And any war that they ship you off to is just them betting poker chips against other rich people. So, like, when FDR uh, rejiggers, reconfigures the executive, and he gives power to these agencies, he's extending the power of the executive. He's layered over top of the old constitutional model a new imperial bureaucracy ran directly from the White House, elevating it to the level of a king again, which allows this growth and expansion of the American system, which had reached its ridiculous limits and stupid limits under the libertarian capitalist order that had led to the Great Depression. It was only lifted out of that by the will of one person, which wasn't really his will. He was surrounded by people, right? That's how it always is. The Leviathan is much like the crown. The crown is not, King Charles III. It's the secretary usually who makes all the decisions, and they're a family of well-bred origin, and they are usually pretty smart. Anyways, so when FDR leaves the scene, all the rich people who only, submitted to FDR so that they could keep their place atop the globe, right? That the Anglos would remain the top dog. Had the Germans conquered, the USSR to the Urals, that new state would be the most powerful state for the next couple hundred years, or unless it fell into civil war immediately, which it might have. But that threat couldn't go unanswered. Once the threat was gone, they went right back to the war of all against all. And the war of all against all involves perfidy and lies and slowly manipulating your emotions as a worker, right? As a member of the citizenry. That's why they slowly gutted the worker state until the 70s, when they got off the gold standard, and then they took a 10-year delay to let things deteriorate before they pushed forward their fascist light under Reagan. Sedition. It's sedition all the way across. If you are the sovereign, if you are representing the state, if you are the general secretary to the state itself. If there had been power, that would not have gone unanswered. There would have been assassinations, executions, proscriptions. And the rich may have cried, and they may have bemoaned how lawless the world is, but the law is a general rules that must be followed in word and spirit. And once you reach the upper echelons of society, deviating in spirit when you have the material ability to, you know, really be loyal to the system it's sedition, and it should be answered that way.
Brave knights and sturdy yeomen, and cast down Blood Raven, that foul sorcerer, lest your children and your children's children be cursed forevermore. Every word was treason. Even so, it was a shock to see him here with holes where his eyes had been. How many eyes does Lord Bloodraven have? The riddle ran. 1,000 eyes and one. When the town was well behind them, Dunk cleared his throat and said, "Bad business cutting off the heads of septons. All he did was talk. Words are wind." "Some words are wind, sir. Some are treason."
And Locke has no answer to that. Nothing. The state of nature has a law of nature to govern it, which obliges everyone and reason. We're not all bound by the same reason. If we were bound by the same reason, if me and Peter Thiel were bound by the same reason, I'd go nuts. I'd go nuts. I'd be nuts. And we have to remember that it's these rich people inherited this belief, and that these beliefs changed over history. I can track them. There was a time when we were pre-civil, right? Pre-organization around cities. And there was a change in morality, a change in outlook that allowed that. And it's usually tied in with the worship of Inanna. So that to me means a very smart woman was involved, right? That's a goddess. And it was basically the first goddess and the chief goddess of the Sumerian area. Every Akkadian king who dominated that area afterwards would call himself the husband of Inanna, right? That's proof positive of the morality of history being up for debate, that we've been fighting about it. And I don't want Peter Thiel's input on what, reason should be. He's not reasonable. He's completely hallucinatory. He's talking about the Antichrist and being laughed at by priests. But he wants to be taken seriously. Reason is for champions who think themselves honorable enough to see their own view of the state. It's the Achilles myth, again, that we were talking about earlier. Much earlier. That a society can do better if some of them aspire to more than being tools of the state. Hobbes says the only way to be able to defend from the invasion of foreigners and the injuries of one another is to confer all their power on one man or assembly of men. Power must be concentrated, because otherwise it concentrates wherever it may find. And because of the war of all against all, it usually finds its way to the most brutal, the most perfidious, the most disgusting, the most awful human beings imaginable. And we all have to sit here and be told that they're geniuses. Peter Thiel is not smart. He's evil. He's evil, and he's backed by other evil men. And last argument, basically at the same time as this is going down, not at the same time, sometime later, the French Enlightenment goes off, and they really reify the ideas of Locke. They really prefer Locke over Hobbes, and they're responding to a system that is Hobbesian, like overwhelmingly Hobbesian. The Versailles king is the Leviathan, Le Roi Soleil, the Sun King. But what it shows is who they are, right? It doesn't really show anything about reality. But people like Diderot and Montesquieu and Rousseau were talking about dispersing power and using reason or appealing to the general will of society, are stuck in their moment, yeah? Are stuck in a moment that they can't even see as a moment, that they think expands to all time, because they think in Christian ideology, which is, I can see in history when that was made up. So that can't be true. I'm not going to be bound by that. And moreover, as we were saying earlier, that they all believed that they make choices and that they were bound to do that because of their class position. They could not stay in that class position had they believed otherwise. The class position of the rich believes in choices. Neoplatonism, believing in aspiring to ideals, that you make the choice to do that, leads to this government failure. Men are wicked. Men are sinners. Men are evil. They will grasp for power at any opportunity. It is not, up to reason. It is the material circumstances that forces them to grasp for more. We're all just apes, yeah? We're all just trying to get more food and more sex. And to finish, the photos yesterday of Trump holding his Great Gatsby party should be proof positive that this Locke thing is stupid. It's going to lead to this result every time, that the power dissipates to these people who have contempt for the Commonwealth, for the original bargain, which is that power concentrates so that everyone is safe within the concentrated power. And maybe, it's definitely barbarous and nationalistic, that and it views others as less than, but it is the system that we operate in and are bound by for now. And showing it contempt just breaks it. Is just operating it inefficiently. There are things that have to be accounted for in the universe. And when you drive a car over a plane of water, right? You can't just decide to jerk the wheel back because you don't like it. You have to let go of the gas for a bit and know that you know what you're doing, right? That what's going on will pass. I'll tell you what the French Revolution didn't do for France. It didn't give it back its spot as top dog, which was what caused it. Being second place means that there's less luxury for all the castes. The treats, the treat fountain does not flow as well while you're in second place. And so there's less positions for all these nobility. Anyways, thank you. Have a nice day. Hello, you've made it to the end of the video. Thank you. This channel has one mission: to prevent civilizational collapse associated with climate change, to prevent 100 million refugees by 2035, to stop 7 billion from starving to death by 2075. And we will do this through one main vehicle. We mean to unite the Anglosphere. We will do this by convincing the Commonwealth of His Majesty King Charles III to apply for statehood as one. And then with this new power, we will be able to negotiate in good faith with the rest of the world on how to tackle this crisis. Thank you and enjoy.